The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 years, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Ben Ark from LN Bits.
Hello.
Victoria Jones from Satoshi's Page.
Good evening, everybody.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue 1. The price of Bitcoin is up. Quick refresh to get the latest price from bitcoinal.com. It's almost breaking off the top of the chart. The price of Bitcoin is up 1.75% in the last 24 hours, with a last of $103,330, a high of $104,340, and a low of $101,390. That's $1 for 968 Satoshis on the other side of the 1,000 Satoshi barrier. Issue 1, removing Bitcoin's guardrails, the op return issue. As we discussed last week on the show, the op return discussion had started brewing on Twitter with many angry forces on both sides. This week, as expected, we can get you more information and provide detailed information as well as links to where you can get the story for yourself. Check out this excellent blog by Bitmex Research, Removing Bitcoin's Guardrails, where they talk about in detail about op return and that previously it was a limited output. You could store some data. They want to make it an unlimited output. This is because of the popularity of ordinals and other things which are already happening. The main discussion seems to come down to whether or not you think people that pay are spammers. The idea of Bitcoin previously has always been that the fee would adjust, getting rid of the spammers. Eventually, it's too expensive to spam. Other people are saying that even if you pay, you are a spammer. Jameson Lops on one side, he says the op return debate is novel due to how the factions are split. One side is ruthlessly rational technological folks who understand the dynamics of the network and don't want to play unending subjective games. The other side are ideological folks upset how others use the network who want to play those games, showing that Jameson's clearly on the side of those who pay can use the network. Simple Mining has a different take, saying that some are saying it's a slippery slope to Ethereum, others calling it an essential upgrade. And still our friend DJ Booth questions it, saying, since when does Bitcoin acquiesce to flash in the pan business models, with some claiming that Chain Code Labs asked Peter Todd to make the op return limit go away? Ben Ark, it's a complex issue. It's exploding over crypto Twitter, if there is such a thing left in this dark, dark world. What do you think about op return and the attempt to make it unlimited op return?
I mean, there's a lot of skin in the game, isn't there? So in that article, with the ordinal article, they said that there'd been 7,000 Bitcoin made in fees on ordinals, using ordinals. And so clearly there's a vested interest for this thing to be pushed through or not to be pushed through. And that even applies to Peter Todd, because a lot of people are like, well, why is Peter Todd PRing for somebody else? But ultimately, you know, uses op return with open timestamps. And there is that limit to what you can, you know, hash into a transaction via op return. Currently, it's limited to 80 bytes. And that limit was put in place so we didn't add bloat to the blockchain. It would help open times. It would help a whole bunch of projects if that limit were not there. If you could squeeze more into op return. So basically, the way it works is, as I understand it, is one of the outputs of your transaction is you can just push in some arbitrary data. It's quite limited at the moment, and then that's essentially burnt. So it's like a burnt trend. And this is like historically how people have stored data on the blockchain and made it persistent. Is that you're burning to an address, and with op return, you take one of the outputs and then you can put 80 bytes in, and you can, you know, put a hash in of some Merkle tree of data. So you get a whole bunch of data, like with open timestamps. You know, you get a whole bunch of documents you want to timestamp, and then you create a tiny little hash of all those documents, essentially, And then you can store that hash in the blockchain and say, okay, at this point in time, this hash was stored in the blockchain. And then if you can recreate that hash using those documents and using that data, you can say, well, that data existed at that point in time, which there's a huge use case um, for all sorts of reasons. I mean, my partner, she was doing a PhD, and she had to, when you start when you start an academic study or a scientific study, you have to say the protocol you're going to use for how you're going to collect and observe your data or whatever, and then that needs to then be timestamped. And the way in which in academia they timestamp this information is so easy to corrupt and change. Actually, if you just hash into a Bitcoin transaction, it kind of makes sense. So there's a whole bunch of like use cases. I mean, like simple proofs, for example, which is a great project which works with open timestamps for provably fair. Sorry, not provably fair. More provable digital voting systems. And they ran it in Guatemala for a Guatemalan election. They had a whole bunch of ombudsmen from lots of different overseers, and they all said that it's probably one of the fairer elections which has ever happened on the planet when it comes to digital voting. And I think they've managed to roll in a couple of states in the US, and that uses open timestamps as well, and ultimately uses op return as well. So it's obviously a huge use case that you have this time chain of stuff which has happened, and you can say cryptographically that this thing within the blockchain has probably happened at that point in time, or more or less definitely has happened at that point in time, which is massive on the internet, because you've been able to prove that something happened at a specific point in time, and you can't go in and change the data. But all that being said, ultimately, Bitcoin's use case is transferring value. It's digital cash on the internet. So do we want it as this huge file storage which anyone can put anything in? And if you increase that return limit, then you can stick more arbitrary data within that transaction. And that raises questions of what type of data. So currently, usually, if someone wants to put something in there which is kind of dodgy or illegal or whatever, then it's sort of fiddly. Like, you have to use multiple transactions, or you have to just create a hash of the transaction and say, oh, look, I'm storing the hash of this transaction there. Whereas if you increase that limit, then you could store more data directly onto the Bitcoin blockchain. It kind of blows it out a little bit. I was always on the side, historically, for years, I've been on the side of, if the code allows it, people want to pay the fee, you can stick anything you want to put in a transaction. That's fine. That's what the fee mark is for. More recently, I've been kind of introduced into this world of affinity scams, which we now have in Bitcoin, of all these like layer 1, layer 2 project affinity scams. And it's the ICO scammers, the shitcoin scammers, the people who just want to make a quick buck and aren't actually producing anything worthwhile. They're now piggybacking off, Bitcoin being the main event, which we all knew it was, of course. And they're creating this, like, these basically shitcoins on Bitcoin. It's like, oh, this is a layer 1 project, and it's Bitcoin centric because use Bitcoin as the gas, and it has a token, and blah blah blah, buy our token, and it's just a shitcoin. I fear that when you increase that return limit, then it allows for more of that type of behavior. And actually, these like scammers have become so sophisticated now that if I were like new into the Bitcoin space, if you were just to kind of Google Bitcoin and projects on Bitcoin, like, it'd be quite hard to differentiate between what's good and what's bad. But then again, I suppose, I don't know. I mean, I was always like, all the stuff which happens on the shitcoins, I'm like, oh, well, let's bring it back to Bitcoin. But then more recently, I've suddenly started getting very conservative, and I'm like, yeah, please, can you just stay away from Bitcoin and can we just keep Bitcoin as transactions for now, and then maybe in the future you can add some stuff into there. I mean, like the way I think the array op return works now is pretty good. You can use it for open timestamps, you can use it for whatever else. And I know that by increasing that limit, it makes like Taro easier to run, and RGB, and a whole bunch of like good use cases. But then it's a double-edged sword. You're then opening the doors for all these sort of spammy use cases, which can blow the blockchain, as people say. So I'm not sure what my opinion is on it, because I'm backtracking on the opinion which I've held for years about, if you pay the fee for the transaction, you can put whatever you want into the blockchain. I like a smaller envelope, because I think people are a little bit, if it's like you can store this much data, arbitrary data, within a Bitcoin transaction. Now go build some stuff, and people build stuff. And then if you increase that amount of space which people can store the arbitrary data in, then there's less of a narrow. I like a narrow design envelope which people have to design for, because I think it makes people more efficient. And then ultimately, the world needs Bitcoin to work as free and open source, apolitical, decentralized money, which is an opt-out for people who don't want to engage in the traditional financial system. The world needs that. It also needs, a decentralized file storage system, but maybe Bitcoin isn't for that. Maybe Bitcoin should just be kept for transmitting value. Maybe that's the answer, but I'm not 100% sure why. I mean, but everyone on the internet is very opinionated on where they sit on this debate. But I'm like, I have an opinion, but I have conflicting opinions. I don't know.
All right, Ben, we'll break it down a little for us. When it says unlimited, right now I'm thinking that it's a text string. You could put maybe just some characters in there. Does unlimited mean JPEGs? Does it mean
Yeah,
MP
it means
files? Does it mean
yeah,
movies?
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Is it just based upon how much I'm willing to pay? Could I put a movie on there?
Yeah, exactly. It's unlimited. You could stick anything in there. So you could stick something
But I have
really.
to pay, right? It would be expensive, right? If I want to put
You've
a
got to
movie-
pay, but yeah, you've got to pay. So like I mean, this is something a debate we've covered on this show before, and I think it's something which will be covered more in the future. But if somebody, stores a sketchy image on the Bitcoin blockchain, and we're all downloading essentially that sketchy image and then distributing it, like there's laws which don't like that kind of behavior. So I'm not all for being able to just store images and then everyone else having to be able to like.
But to some extent,
Keep
that
those
was
images
already
in the
happening
blockchain.
with text, right? People put the Quran on there. They put other things that you can't distribute, copyrighted works, so forth, religious things people might disagree with, and so forth, all in text. If
Yeah,
you
it's just
pay
kind of
for
hard.
it, you could put a JPEG, you could put a GIF, you could pay more, put a movie. I mean, like, and then the second question here is, what about things like compact blocks or nodes that update quickly? I know we had some nodes, smaller, lighter nodes. Does this break all of them? And then when we say the data is in there, is it really in like the Bitcoin blockchain? I mean, I know previously, and the articles talked about how with other projects they used SegWit and Taproot, or they used SegWit to put the data in the witness, right? So they snuck data in for not ordinals, but the other project, what inscriptions or something. But and then this is different though. This would be more official because it's in the op return. So does it break all the compact blocks? Does it break all the nodes that update quickly? Can it be, quote, pruned, people say?
Well, I mean, so you want to be able to filter, and maybe op return isn't the best code for that. Maybe we need something else like an op commit code where you can have tags where you're like, okay, this is an image, this is a video, whatever, and then you can filter that shit out if you want to. So it's kind of hard to filter some of that data out when you're trying to prune a node, and prune nodes are very popular with people who are running. They just want to access the Lightning Network or do payments on their phone. They don't want a full Bitcoin node on their phone. They want like a prune node. That's fine for that use case. And it does make that more difficult if there isn't decent filtering. And I think that's the concern I have is like there are other ways to store more arbitrary data on the blockchain, which could allow you to have a tag so you can at least try and do some filtering to filter out some of the crap you don't want.
I think that would be a good idea, but that might be also changing the project. Like you said, Ben, there's this fear that Bitcoin would become more than just a financial transaction network and become for many things. As for your inability to make a decision on either side, I really agree with Bitmex, their blog's decision here. They say, conclusion, we are somewhat supportive of the removal of the op return limit because it really does seem like a thing that we could do. But why do we have to do it now? Why are we in such a hurry?
Well,
what
that's
do
it.
we specifically need it for? Right?
And with Bitcoin, you're always operating on that Boeing 747 while it's flying in midair, full of passengers. And there are all these unknowns. I hate that argument, but there are unknowns. Like when you change something in the future, you don't know how people are going to abuse it. And when it comes to arbitrary data into Bitcoin transactions, you don't know whether the fee system will hold out and will be able to, like you might be able to game it in some way, which we're not aware of, because that functionality currently doesn't exist. But I quite like the support you have for ulterior implementations, because for a long time in Bitcoin we're like, oh yeah, we're decentralized, but then you have, your Bitcoin core is basically the client everybody runs, and then early on you had like multiple clients, but now really you've just got Bitcoin core, and then you got knots, but I mean it's just the share which works on that. So I quite like that there's a whole bunch of people now who are like at least experimenting with alternative clients. Not that I have any problem with Bitcoin Core. I think Bitcoin Core is incredible, and crikey, whatever they decide to do, in that regard, it's for me, it's a meritocracy. Like they know what they're doing, just leave them to it. At this point in time, anyway. But it's nice that people are exploring some of those alternative implementations and running things like knots, because it's good to have multiple clients.
Well, you know what Donald Rumsfeld famously said: there are known unknowns and there are unknown unknowns. And there are things that we know that we don't know, and there are things that we don't know that we don't know. Check again with the chat. Do we need op return unlimited? Inspiring Formulas says it reminds him of we need cups of coffee now. Schrodinger says it might as well be unlimited. They could put the data in the witness space, but cheaper to do it better this way. Let's see. Ordinals are popular among collectors, maybe not normal people. Chikezi says his gut says no to unlimited op return. And let's see, we're heading towards a future with more data on chain, says Dusty Gray. Maybe it's
I think that's it for me. I think that's it for me. My head is saying, if people want to pay the fee, let them do whatever they want to do. And my gut is saying, no, don't do that.
It seems like an especially bad time with so many bad actors, so many financial actors, so many non-cyberpunk, non-libertarian, non-agreeing with the project actors. It seems like they're introducing a possibility where you could break the system with this. I'm also interested in the idea, like you said, Ben, that coins spent on these, whatever they are, unlimited op returns would be burnt forever. So in the way that it does destroy Bitcoin, it increases the value for everyone else holding Bitcoin, just like lost Bitcoins. And finally, before we go to Victoria, who I know is waiting patiently in the wings, Ben, what do you think? Is this Peter Todd Satoshi, allegedly the creator of Bitcoin, according to HBO, a friend of ours? Is he coming back to save Bitcoin again, like in the prophecies? He goes to open timestamps, he comes back, he fixes op return, then he can do some other magic with open timestamps. Is this once again, obvious,
I think it's
like not, real proof, but
I think it's more that it's, I mean, the Antoine guy is kind of, he's had some shit in the past from the community, and he's like, oh, there's this, we should probably PR this thing in because there's demand for it, but I don't want to do it. And they have an internal debate, and Pierre Todd, because he's such a troll, he's like, I'll do it, I don't give a fuck. And then he did it, but he also has a vested interest in that, open timestamps is his baby. And it's a very, I love open timestamps. I think the world needs to wake up to open timestamps and how useful it is. It is his baby, and it would make open timestamps work a little bit easier. So
I do agree, Ben, coming from a legal data background, having timestamps, having an open system, not requiring on just notaries, but having a better modern, future system rather than that stamp. We stamp documents still here physically. Victoria Jones, what do you think? Op return, you can store more data in the blockchain. And of course, Peter Todd could be Satoshi. Don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a story I've been following, and didn't know what was happening until I read the article this evening. I think the point I would pick up on is the idea of building a Boeing 747 in the sky. I mean, you just don't want to mess with Bitcoin too much. You don't want to change it too much. It's the unknown consequences. I mean, ultimately, it's the same kind of problem with what we've got with our existing legal system. You kind of you end up making laws to undo the bad laws that you did in the past. I mean, just stop making laws. You've got the basics, leave it alone. So yeah, I mean, these are the kind of debates that can go on for centuries, and every time someone tries to fix a problem that you've created in the past, it creates more problems when you fix it. And you're going to make Bitcoin unusable if you jump in and think you need to micromanage it every time you need to micromanage it. So I'd say if there's some kind of limit at the moment, I'd say that was probably well thought through from the beginning. And unless there's a good reason to change it, And even then, it would have to be a pretty phenomenal reason to change it. I mean, just leave it alone. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on the subject.
It certainly doesn't seem like the kind of thing you're going to go to an exchange and say, I want Bitcoin with the new op return, or that there's a consumer demand out there saying op return, op return. Conspiratorially, we have these alleged allegations that it comes from Chain Code Labs or somehow benefits someone somewhere. Like Ben says, though, it does benefit Open Timestamps, which is Peter's project. So certainly there's benefit there as well. It does seem kind of radical, though, which blends into the exit question. Ben Ark, will this get done? Yes or no? And will it be now, 6 months, 2 years, or later?
They say like free and open source is a sausage made in public, in that it's gross and messy, but then you end up with this delicious sausage at the end of the process. So however it goes, all the debate's good. It's good that people are getting riled up about it. It's good that people are, making their voices heard, and there's something of a social consensus which is happening. And that needs to happen time to time in Bitcoin, to remind everybody that there's the consensus, reaching consensus in Bitcoin is more than just the core developers deciding to do something. So yeah, I'm all for the debate, the discussion, and then people just getting more clued up on how Bitcoin operates and what these opcodes can do and potentially do.
It is funny, Ben, the sausage may be delicious, but it's often poisonous. And certainly all the food here in the United States is processed. It's not like the original food. So we have no idea what's going on. And that goes back in many ways to what Satoshi was originally mad about with the financial crisis. They were selling bad loans in boxes that said good loans. And he thought you should have a purity, a truth where you can connect to the Bitcoin. And that's what we're also losing so much with these finance guys taking over Bitcoin and holding so much of it, is that people don't use it. People don't publish their address. There's this lack of connection to it. Victoria Jones, will we get op return unlimited, and will we get it soon?
Well, I think as Bitcoin gets older and becomes more established, it is actually quite hard to make changes. You need consensus now for a lot of these rule changes, as I understand, and of course, in a situation where people are pretty much split on the idea, it's unlikely that you're going to get a strong enough vote one way or the other. So I don't know. I'd be surprised. Is it a big enough issue for them to want to make the change? I hope not. I like the way in which Bitcoin is structured to make these kinds of minor decisions, which is really at the end of the day harder to implement. So I suspect it will take longer. I hope it does anyway.
Once again, it seems like a distraction for a feature that we don't need or don't want. We want privacy for Bitcoin. We want to debate privacy for Bitcoin. It seems like if this doesn't go through right away, we're going to debate this for 2 years and 5 years, whatever, and we're going to waste our time that we could be spending talking about privacy solutions. This doesn't seem directly related to a privacy solution, so I'm not directly for it. I agree with the Bitmex decision and Ben's wishy-washiness that, yeah, sure, we kind of need it, but do we need it now? Are we in a hurry? I don't think so, but I'm sure Peter would disagree. Moving on to issue 2, the price, the price, the price, the price, and the price. The price of Bitcoin has gone up. It has decoupled from the stock market. It has left the crippled and devastated Trump economy behind. Maybe because of Trump's support, and he has his own coin, he has his own exchange, they have their own coin, his wife has her own coin, his kids probably have their own coins, and they're all thinking of new ideas and new coins to make. But why did Bitcoin go up? Maybe it's because of what Tech Dev has been saying the entire time on Twitter, that this isn't even about the halvening cycle, it's the business liquidity cycle, and that Bitcoin went up because of that. Others think it's the second bump from the halvening. Still more think it's just irrational, crazy crypto. Victoria Jones, what do you think about the price, the price, the price of Bitcoin, which is, of course, the most important thing about Bitcoin? Every single article that I looked for this week, 200, 300 articles, the price, the price, the price, the price, the price, which again, they all said it was dead again.
Well, it's certainly we're certainly in the period of time where it tends to go parabolic. What I find quite amusing though is that they're now getting excited about 160K figure. I mean, what was it 2 years ago? It was 500K. I mean, they're finally reining in their expectations. Yeah, I suspect over the next few months it's probably got further to go, but then we're likely to probably have a slowdown as we traditionally do. So just be careful, folks. This is often the point at which people get excited and start to jump in. Certainly, a lot of businesses are jumping on the bandwagon right now, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. Yeah, just be careful. It may not be the retail investors getting excited this time. Maybe it's the companies about to go get stupid with it and then get their fingers burnt. You never know.
I do recall major stories about BlackRock buying tons of Ethereum, and then Ethereum's up 20% in a day. Other people have been investing in Bitcoin, Bitcoin treasury after Bitcoin treasury, whether it's a state or a city or a company. They're all in the black today. Ben Ark, what do you think about the price, the most important thing about Bitcoin?
I'm not sure it is entirely decoupled. Like if you look at the Dow Jones, that's also kind of ticked up, and I think a lot of it, as Starship said in the chat, is we had the first kind of tariff deal happen this week with Trump in the UK, and that does give the markets a little bit of optimism that perhaps normality will resume. I feel quite bullish actually. I feel like I thought the price was going to tank a lot more than it did, and it didn't. And for me, that's just a good sign that we have a whole bunch of kind of, Bitcoin hodler. Bitcoin hodler bedrock is nice and strong, which is what you want. And I think the world perhaps is just waking up to the fact that it needs Bitcoin and Bitcoin. There's just lots of conversations which are happening, which end up encompassing Bitcoin. People talking about whatever, like they'll end up talking about, cryptocurrencies and then vis-a-vis Bitcoin. So just for sort of what's the word? Not SEO, but like just not impact. What's the word? Oh, old brain. But yeah, I just within the news cycle, there's lots of excuses to speak about Bitcoin, and I think the world is waking up to the fact that we really need this thing to exist. And I think as well, people are like subconsciously playing out or consciously playing out just the game theory of where currencies are kind of heading. And that for all these interests which don't want to use the US dollar and the petrodollar, that they may try and create a BRICS or whatever else, but none of the BRICS guys kind of trust each other. So if you play out the game theory, it's like Bitcoin kind of makes sense. Like just use Bitcoin. You don't want to use the US dollar, and ultimately you need something which is apolitical, and this thing works and it's tried and tested, and just use Bitcoin. So I kind of feel like the world is waking up to that. But then there has also been optimism, just generally the markets over the UK US deal.
I don't know if I'd wait for a return to normality anytime soon, Ben. It is good on the tariff deal. The fact that they've made a deal with the UK implies that they're not actually going to hold the tariffs off for 4 years or longer, which means that they were lying when they said they wanted to onshore manufacturing and that was never a goal, and that it was really just a way to shake down the other countries for allegedly a better percentage. In the UK deal, I think the UK got their side of the tariffs to go down from 10% to 3% so they can buy from the US. The US still has to pay a 10% luxury tax when buying from the UK, so it's not really that great a deal.
I don't know. I don't know if it's related, but we had some oranges, and they were quite yummy oranges, delicious oranges. But then on the label for the oranges, it said not to be sold in the EU. And then it's like, why can't you sell them in the EU? And then there was a whole bunch of horrible chemicals on the skin of the orange, like pesticides. And I guess, now we're Brexited, maybe we're a little bit more less regulated. We haven't got the EU regulations. And we had a whole bunch of like agricultural things trying to be pushed through Parliament in the UK. So basically we can buy your roided up meat and your terrible agricultural products from the US. So Starmer, bit of a sellout, but yeah, markets like it.
It is interesting to happen as you see that, you have local activists and you fight for all these rules and restrictions on your beef or your meat or whatever it may be. Then international trade comes in, restructures those restrictions. Of course, Trump allegedly said, Bobby is looking into it. So maybe we're going to clean up all of American beef and then still have excess, which we could then send to you, as if the dirty things don't supply us with the excess. Victoria Jones, what do you think about the tariffs deal and, of course, the price of Bitcoin?
I think I've already commented on the price, haven't I? Yeah, the tariffs deal. Yeah, I mean, what was it? I think I was watching a video earlier where someone was saying that they put the tariffs up to, I can't remember what the figure was, but they put the tariffs up and then they brought them down, but they're still higher than they were before the whole fiasco started. So it's still actually an increased tax on the world economy. So yeah, I mean, I've actually written my last newsletter was on Bitcoin and free trade, where I commented on exactly this issue. I mean, raising tariffs is ultimately a form of tax, and it's a way of controlling inflation, which I think is what Trump is really after, in spite of all the drama around the whole subject. So, yeah, so having a deal that actually puts the tariff way up, then brings it down, but it's still higher than before, is still having the effect. But of course, the end result gets lost in all the noise. So yeah, it's just drama for the sake of drama, really. And yeah, I think the net effect is we're going to end up in a deflationary crisis at some point. But I've been saying that for a while. I feel like I'm sitting in a preview of The Big Short 2.0. We're just really, really early.
It's like when you play a slot machine in Vegas, you have a bet of $5 and the game will say to you, you won $1, but really you lost $4. And we keep doing that to ourselves and we don't seem to understand. And where that Shel Silverstein poem as well, where he trades all of his money down. He's like, I traded $1 for 3/4 because 3 is more than 1, and he just keeps going down, down, down. And we're just delighted with our downward trades and our downward trajectory. It's great. We're going to wreck everything. But we still have the Bitcoin Magic 8 Ball, the source of all truth and knowledge in this universe. Ben, Ark, will it be higher or lower this time next week?
Got all bullish now. The fact that it broke 100K and there's a lot of resistance zones which is sort of smashed through. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty bullish on Bitcoin in general. So higher. So 600 billion, here we go.
Victoria Jones, higher or lower?
Yeah, it's looking pretty strong. I'm going to go with higher.
And we'll ask the Magic 8 Ball. Of course, shaking the ball could cause bubbles. Will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week? And it says, ask again later. Ask again later. That's the thing about predictors. Sometimes they don't want to respond. You have to think for yourself. Check out worldcryptonetwork.com, where you could think for yourself and watch more than 4,351 videos. You could watch them for 3 months, 21 days, and 21 hours consecutively. Moving on to issue 3, $45 million stolen from Coinbase users in the last week, according to ZachXBT. Coinbase users are falling prey to social engineering scams, costing users tens of millions of dollars in losses, but it doesn't matter to Coinbase. Ben, Ark, we've talked about Coinbase before, that maybe they haven't been hacked, but perhaps their lapse is allowing their users to be hacked. We've warned them about this for decades. Many people I know have lost all their coins on Coinbase and been responded to with a ha-ha type email. Now it looks like it's coming back, and many, many users, $45 million worth of users, are being stolen from. Ben, Ark, what do you think?
Nothing's real. Strawberry fields. It's just the nature of the internet and AI and all the tools people have access to and all the scammers people have all the scamming tools people have access to nowadays. More and more. I don't like it, but I think the world needs to embrace public key cryptography. It's what makes Bitcoin possible. It's what makes Nostr possible, and it solves a lot of our problems for proving who's human and who's not human. I think we just need to embrace public key cryptography more. Yeah, so the scammers are getting more sophisticated, and you get that email from Coinbase and it's all panicked and telling you to pull your funds and send it to this other address because this is the address it will be secure. And you throw that email out to, you know, a million different people, and then suddenly a couple of people are going to buy it and you're going to steal some money. So I can see the why people the not the appeal, but like why people end up scamming other people, because it's pretty easy over the internet, and it's not like face to face, and you don't have that kind of instant social moral conundrum of scamming somebody, which you would have traditionally when you try and scam somebody. And then you can hide your voice through AI, and I can pretend to be Thomas and phone his family and tell them to send those secret stash of Bitcoin, which I gave to them, to this special address because Thomas is in trouble. But I think it's probably not a bad thing that like we start to get to grips with the fact that we can't really trust anything on the internet. And we need to embrace tools which allow humans to be able to trust each other more, which ultimately is public key cryptography. And Bitcoin is an offshoot. The revolution is public key cryptography. And then you've got Bitcoin is made possible by that, as are a bunch of other stuff as well. But the revolution is public key cryptography. So that's what I'm excited about.
Really, like you're saying, Ben, it's all about the quality of these scammers. As I said, I got that incredible email from Coinbase, not really them, with the words of the wallet right in the email. But what's great about it is that it matches up with something that's actually on the Coinbase website. It says that they're going to migrate users out of their Web3 wallet. So if you saw that message on real Coinbase, got an email about it, your brain would connect the two and you'd be right.
Also, you can like, there's these websites, there's the Coinbase health website or whatever, where if it ever has any downtime, it will publish it, you know, on the health of the status of Coinbase. And, you know, for whatever reason, they have to shut down outgoing transactions, then they'll publish it on this website. And then for a scammer, that's great, because that means you just keep an eye on that website. And then whenever they throw out one of those warnings that they're going to have to pause withdrawing money from Coinbase, that is when you email all the customers, or just email random people and just say, hey, that Coinbase account, it says we paused transactions, but we just want to tell you, as someone we value as a valued customer, that in order to keep your coins secure, could you please move them to this address? Any coins you have, all coins and any coins.
I agree. It's fun and easy to dunk on Coinbase, but the problem is huge and real. We had it at BTC Jam. We had it at Purse. Everyone I know who works at Bitcoin companies has this problem. Josh always talks about how his site Vaultoro was always under attack from hackers. It's much more real and prevalent than you think. Victoria Jones, what do you think about Coinbase and the scammers? Are they doing enough to protect their users?
Well, unfortunately, Bitcoin is about self-sovereignty, which also comes with self-responsibility. And like so many things in life, sometimes you have to get your fingers burnt before you learn. And I think, you know, people themselves need to become more sophisticated, because, you know, as Bitcoin gains traction and becomes the world reserve currency, it completely disrupts how existing companies operate. And you're not going to be able to cry to companies or the government if you lose your Bitcoin by doing something silly. So, you know, learn to see the signs. Don't respond to strange people messaging you on Telegram, offering you a job and then asking you to download some software in order to apply, especially when it's a stranger that you've never met. Always be suspicious of someone who asks you to download software onto an app. And, you know, just individuals are going to have to become more sophisticated themselves to figure out, you know, what they need to avoid and what they don't need to avoid. And unfortunately, at the moment, we're still in the Wild West with crypto, and at any moment you can step on a landmine. So you have to be careful, and it's the price you pay for being in the crypto industry at all at the moment. So yes, Coinbase can do more, but I think individuals need to do more themselves as well, which is my tough love for this evening.
I agree, and I expect for the problem to get bigger and for the number to be 10 times as much the next time we talk about this. So stay safe out there.
But just to add one more thing in there, like part of the war's problem currently is that, you know, a lot of consumers of news for example, were used to like journalist integrity, and were used to kind of like legitimate news sources, and then they're given this thing, the internet, which has all this data and this stuff which looks legitimate, and they don't question that information enough. So I think it's probably humans, just like Victoria was saying, they just need to get used to really not trusting anything on the internet. You're watching something, you're like, can I trust this thing? Like, is it
Including the
cryptographically?
legitimate news sources.
Yeah, and then is it cryptographically like verifiable? Like at least the even this show, like soon it won't be hard to spin up one of these shows telling anyone who's watching to buy X shitcoin, that we all fully support this shitcoin, and people need to get. I mean, public key cryptography gives us the tools to be able to verify that stuff. So like you can go, you could plausibly go to a platform where you can see that the content which is being delivered to you is being delivered by the people who you know and trust, or are within your trust circle, or your so yeah, it's the tools are there, and we need to build those tools and bake them into the internet so we can actually be human on the internet, and actually be able to trust each other over the internet. And it's good that people become less trusting in the data which they just see on the internet.
It's funny, Ben, I both look forward to and don't look forward to the large language model that they're going to build out of all of our content. And as John Lennon said, I don't believe in Beatles, I just believe in me. Moving on to issue 4, Pump.Fun hits back at report that claimed 98% of meme coins on the platform are fraudulent. Several million tokens have been launched on Pump.Fun since 2024. Looking for the actual quote from the Pump.Fun spokesperson, 98% of meme coins, just like NFTs, tweets, Instagram posts, trading cards, and most art, are worth little in the long run. That's precisely the point. What is important is the availability of a functioning marketplace connecting motivated buyers and sellers, and the underlying cultural expression to which the market attributes or assigns value over time. That's where the magic happens, and that's where we learn what's truly valuable. A pretty incredible statement. We should talk about it more. Also, they say that the meme coin sector hit its crescendo in January when Trump promoted his own Trump meme coin on social media. Of course, as a musician, I hear this crescendo and I think, not as it says here, for a noun, the loudest point reached in a gradually increasing sound, but as an adverb, adjective, or verb, as a thing that is increasing in loudness. Furthermore, the Merriam-Webster dictionary agrees with me as gradual increase being the number one definition. And this musician's webpage that I found talks about the trouble of this phrase and how wrong it sounds, as they're saying the word they need does not exist, which is why crescendo is constantly misused. But I agree with them. Musicians say crescendo is the climb, not the summit. Meanwhile, back to this fantastic statement about 98% of meme coins. Victoria Jones, what do you think about his statement where he kind of claims like, you just have to let us operate this market where 98% of people lose money because someday they might be valuable, and of course, freedom of expression, free speech, and wave the flag.
Well, what's ironic is that kind of statement isn't actually all that unique. I mean, I've got again a newsletter on my website called Bitcoin and the South Sea Bubble, and one of the things I talk about is exactly, how that came into being. And of course, it was right at the beginning of the invention of financial markets when people had no idea what they were really getting into. And crypto is kind of the same way. We're inventing a whole new form of money. And what happens in those situations is people get really embroiled in the excitement. They think they've got this new thing and it can never go wrong. But of course, when it does go wrong, it's devastating. And in fact, there's a quote from that time of the South Sea Bubble where, people were setting up new companies right, left, and center. In fact, one advertised themselves as a company designed to do something of great import, but no one to know what it is. I mean, it's kind of along the same lines, and that was like 300 years ago, but it was at the beginning of the invention of our current financial system. And of course, we're right at the beginning of this current financial system. And of course, tough lessons were learned. You know, the South Sea bubble, it deceived many people, including Isaac Newton, who was trying to manage the Bank of England at the time. Well, he was managing the Royal Mint at the time. So, you know, it's easy to have some kind of propaganda or website that looks very official, someone, an important person, they've managed to create a lot of money, obviously, clearly through fraudulent means, in order to be important and sound important. But of course, people who listen to that kind of thing with no understanding or no context, you know, think that this is a great new thing and it's going to make them rich. And of course, it's a recipe for disaster. In fact, yeah, I mean, you've got the same kind of thing going on at the moment that happened just before the 1929 stock market crash. You know, people borrowing money in order to buy stocks because they think the only way it can ever go is up. And of course, once you're using that kind of leverage, it's just a recipe for disaster. So, yeah, we really need to be careful here, folks. It's exciting, but once, you know, at the beginning of Bitcoin, when we all got excited about this new form of money, it was great because it wasn't actually possible to short Bitcoin until 2017. It wasn't possible to leverage Bitcoin until Michael Saylor came along, especially in the traditional financial system. And of course, now you've got the ETFs. You know, Bitcoin is a long way away from where it was in the beginning, where everyone was doing really well, and all of this leverage is a recipe for disaster. And statements like this don't help the situation because it misleads people. So, yeah, okay, you can experiment with stuff, but you know, when you experiment with the wrong thing, you know, the fox is gonna come home to, or the chicken's gonna come home to roost at some point. So you need to be careful.
It's really interesting to hear him use the crack house defense in reverse as a positive thing. That we've built this fun house that you can't get out of, that you get trapped in, that you lose all your money in, that 98% of our users seem to lose money. But you should allow us to keep running this fun house because it's their fault. They came in the door, right? You know, we set it up. It's a huge trap. Everyone
And he's
loses.
kind of right. But you know,
Well, and like you said, though, last week or a few weeks ago, Victoria, with Hex, if it mirrors the existing financial system, if we say this pump.fund crack house is no different than, say, a casino crack house, or even worse, a sports betting crack house, or if we want to go to a stock market or a bonds crack house, that perhaps all of these are disasters where you walk in with your money and walk out confused about, you know, and it's gone. Let's go to Ben Ark. What do you think about the claim that 98% of people lost money on pump.fund, but it was a good time?
Yeah, only 98% of the people on here are scamming you. It's fine. You know, I'm operating this platform and 98% of the people in here are scammers. But, you know, it's worth it for the 2% who aren't scammers. And actually, I think we all know that it's probably a lot less than 2% of these meme coins which aren't scams. Yeah, we could all, like us here and our audience members, we're all pretty much seasoned kind of Bitcoiners. We've been in the space for a while. If we wanted to, we could all go shitcoin and make some money. But we don't, because morally, we know it's a bad thing. It's like you're removed from the person you're ripping off. And like I said before, it's not like a direct scam. You'd have to go knock on people's door and try and swindle, you know, old ladies out of their pension funds or whatever. But it's still a scam. And we don't do that. And we should all give ourselves a pat on the back for not indulging ourselves in scams and just trying to enrich ourselves. And these people should be held to account, and we should just point the finger at them and say, you are a scammer. And you shouldn't be, because it's bad. Don't be a scammer. It's immoral and it's wrong. But yeah, I think that number is too generous. It's 99.99999% of everything on Pump Fun is an absolute scam. And it's people just money grabbing. And the world has you know, there's kind of an ethos within the world now just to kind of grab what you can when you can. And it's kind of terrifying in a way. And but yeah, props to all of us lot for not being scammers and sticking with Bitcoin, which is the main event, and actually being here to try and make the world a better place, as opposed to just trying to rip people off and and take their money for producing actually literally nothing.
At this point, Ben, I don't think anybody's going to be punished, but I think we can look forward to two kinds of YouTube videos in the future. The first will be that long deep dive where they bring up each CEO by name and talk about what their company did and compare them like a history. The second one, and I think this will be far more horrifying, will be that guy that does the big charts where everything changes and Internet Explorer goes above Mozilla and then Mozilla goes above Internet Explorer. And it'll be like, who has the biggest scam? And it'll be like Mt. Gox and then FTX. And then it'll be like Pump.Fun. And then there'll be something better and bigger. And it'll get bigger. And then some other thing will crater and collapse. And it'll be really sad because it'll be all lost money. And usually retail money, usually normal people's money lost.
I mean, this kind of behavior is also legitimized by the fact that your president right now has just run a meme coin and scammed 10 billion out of people or whatever it is, out of their users, and has just pumped the hell out of it throughout being president as well. So there's it gives other people. It's like, well, if the president of the US can do it, why can't I do it? And it gives other people like I don't know, moral justification for running these scams, which is very unfortunate. But
we'll talk about it more later. But one trucking company, instead of investing $20 million into advertising, lobbying, new trucks, jobs, things like that, they've invested the $20 million into Trumpcoin with the idea that they can use this to lobby him to reopen trade to Mexico, which is, of course, good for everybody because free trade is good. But let's move on to the lightning round where we have some quick issues. Goldman Sachs plans to tokenize U.S. Treasury bonds and money market funds to enable 24/7 on-chain trading, finally catching up with the Bitcoin market. Victoria, what do you think about the latest bank to join Bitcoin, Goldman Sachs, and the idea of 24/7 stock trading?
Well, they clearly want to compete with Bitcoin, don't they? So, Bitcoin has an advantage allowing people to trade 24/7, so they've got to jump on the bandwagon. So, yeah, fair enough.
Ben Ark, what do you think? Goldman Sachs, another Bitcoiner?
Yeah, as Victoria said, like the world's catching up to the tools we have, and it's trying to make use of them. Hopefully, it'll be on Bitcoin and not some Ethereum thing. But yeah, the world's catching up, and it's good. It's why Bitcoin's here. It's here to make the digital economy more efficient and work better, and it is. So
we have breaking news. Alex Mashinsky, founder of Celsius, has been sentenced to 12 years in prison. I'm sure you all remember him. He was offering Bitcoin type loans. He was using all of the Bitcoiner and libertarian languages. Banks are not your friends, so on and so forth in his speeches. Ben Ark, what do you think about Mashinsky getting 12? And like I said, his use and reuse of Bitcoiner propaganda, which we've also seen mirrored in some large businessmen these days.
It's that affinity scamming, which we were talking about before. You piggyback off all the great altruistic work of us Bitcoiners who've been here for a while and other Bitcoiners in the space. And you piggyback off that, and then you use it to run your scam, and you say all the talking points, banking the unbanked, blah blah blah. But I was amazed at there's a whole universe of Bitcoin. So what it was I was talking to someone about LM Bits, this guy Bitcoiner. Well, and then he said, "Oh, no one's heard of LM Bits in the Bitcoin world." And I was thinking, that doesn't make sense. Of course people have heard of Bitcoin. And then I realized he existed in this different universe where he goes to these different Bitcoin conferences where they talk about all these affinity scams of layer 1, layer 2 tokens, blah blah blah. And then he was going around saying to people, "Oh, have you ever heard of LM Bits?" And then people were like, "Oh, I've heard of it. Oh, I've got buy my coin." And then I realized he's like in this different version of reality. There's this like ulterior Bitcoin, which is some people exist in, which isn't our version of reality, it's their version of reality. And honestly, if I were new to the space, I could easily get distracted by it, and I could think that maybe that's the main event over there. Crazy these affinity scams.
Oh, Ben, wait do you see what I have planned for later. Victoria Jones, what do you think about Celsius founder, 12 years in jail?
Oh, it's not long enough, is it really? I mean, if you think about how many years people get for murder and the number of lives that he will have destroyed using that scam. I mean, I've been in some chat groups where people have been harmed by Celsius and some people have lost their life savings. It's absolutely heart-wrenching. So, yeah, he deserves a lot longer in my estimation.
It is true. We do seem to punish violent crime much more than financial crime, but it destroys people's lives. It takes away their life savings, what they worked for all their lives. And sometimes it's not even their fault. They invested well. The company was just a scam, allegedly. Just revealed, FinCEN explicitly told prosecutors that Samurai Wallet wasn't a money transmitter due to its non-custodial design. DOJ prosecuted the developers anyway, suppressing the exculpatory evidence for a year. Sounds like a really bad deal for Samurai Wallet developers. Victoria Jones, what do you think about the new evidence in the Samurai case that showed their original setup was correct? They were not money transmitters.
I can't say it surprises me. If the law system has an agenda, they've decided you're a criminal, they just need to find a way to get you, then they will. And yeah, I do feel sorry for Samurai. It's very unfair.
And ARC, Samurai Wallet, illegal all the time. Dragged through the mud.
Yeah. So illegal the whole time, not legal.
It seems like their original setup where they were having the funds was non-custodial, that they weren't holding customer funds, so therefore they couldn't be money transmitting it. But the customers were breaking the law. They were using the Samurai Wallet software, allegedly.
So the Samurai guys are kind of getting off.
It seems like this evidence shows that they should have gotten off a lot sooner, that the DOJ withheld the FinCEN advice. FinCEN said, like it or not, perhaps similar to Hex, the setup is clean. It may be complicated, but it's clean. And then, the people then used Samurai to join coins or whatever it was.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I feel like the world of regulations is a lot more lax than it was because, as I said before, your president is running some crypto scams. So, we need to kind of, keep it nice and clear for him so he can operate without being sent to jail, because that would be a dilemma if the president of the US gets sent to jail. So regulation seems to be very hands-off at the moment. I mean, if you look at it like if you facilitate criminality in many other fields, like, we live under the rule of law in societies, and if you facilitate criminality, usually under the rule of law, you get fucked for it. So it's good. It's good they're fine and they're not getting sent to prison, but yeah, I don't know.
Well, as Keith Olbermann says all the times, quoting this Harvard professor, if you're a really big criminal and you're elected president, the only way to stay out of jail is to die in office holding the reins of power. If you lose the reins of power, you go to jail. Therefore, you have to do what's necessary. As we enter the political section of the show, Trump crypto advisor David Bailey, friend of the show, Bitcoin magazine publisher. I remember how many times he's published stories about Mad Bitcoins, the World Crypto Network, probably LN Bits, what was it, Tallycoin, all the things, what was a pro tip, Chris Ellis's work with the full nodes. We receive so much coverage in Bitcoin magazine. We're just dripping and covered with the wetness of this coverage that doesn't exist. Anyway, he's raised $300 million for a Bitcoin investment firm. They're calling it Nakamoto. I've heard that before. It reminds me of a store we used to have at Purses called Nakamoto's. It's going to go public after raising $300 million. Just like everybody else, they're going to hold Bitcoin, and you should invest in them because I don't know. And this has something to do with Bitcoin and holding your own keys, like Satoshi said, because I don't know. And they named it after Satoshi because the same way they named those cars after Nikola Tesla, because it's just blasphemy. They just burned down the names of great people. They should have called it Jesus. Victoria Jones, what do you think about this fantastic new investment vehicle, Nakamoto, which you too could invest in for some reason?
Yeah, I mean, it's all part of the problem that I commented on earlier, isn't it? Really, it's a case of extra use of leverage in order to invest in Bitcoin. And of course, people like it because it's a way of investing in Bitcoin and its pension funds. But, the whole thing's going to blow up at some point. Mark my words.
Well, it's sad that I want to hope for that, but we've gotten to the point where people with money are coming in and making more money. And it's not that interesting. Like, it's not like Victoria said, the crypto revolution, the bottom up, and the little people that Andreas used to talk about that needed to use the wallets, and why we need Satoshis and sub Satoshis and Lightning and all these things, so that these guys can, browse with a couple of family investments, a couple of large corporations, get some big fish, and I get the funds to cover the fees on this and to make the money. Ben Ark, what do you think? Invest in Nakamoto, because invest in Jack Mallers, because invest in MicroStrategy, because Pirate at 40 turned out to be a scammer, but these guys have good credentials.
I mean, there is some, locked in capital in this world, like Victoria said, with the pension funds and people who have like equity in Vanguard or whatever, where they can't shift it to, they can't just go buy some Bitcoin and hold it in a hardware wallet. So these tools need to exist. And it's funny because a few years ago, we would all be applauding such a thing. We'd be like, oh, it's brilliant. Finally, traditional finance is a way of investing in Bitcoin. That's great. Woo. And now we're all very pessimistic about it. But there needs to be more MicroStrategy out there. I've actually got a lot of time for David Bailey. Like, he's always really good to us and giving us coverage and free tickets to the conferences. And he bought me off. He gave me some free tickets to the conferences. He gave me the VIP thing, the free IP tickets, so I could go and hang out with the people who paid 20 grand for their tickets. But no, I mean, he's not had the audience capture thing in Bitcoin. He's never really tried to. He's just never really tried to appeal to the audience. He's just like, he has embraced different arguments from different, smaller factions within Bitcoin, and I think that's kind of cool. But yeah, I got a lot of time for the guy. I think he's all right. He's a good guy. He's a young guy. Sound like Trump. Beautiful man. He's a beautiful man.
In the future, I think they'll write articles that no one did more to assign Bitcoin and align it with right-wing causes than David Bailey, which will probably set us back like 100 years. In
this is also,
we need to be left or right. We need to be right there in the middle, where we have both these people working for us, both sides, which is the obvious choice, right? If you're looking at it from above. But if you're looking at it really up close, you would say in the short term, we could gain. In the long term, we might get fucked.
This is true. But then he did also publish some of my articles, very lefty articles about Bitcoin and Bitcoin, from a left's perspective.
And you sold your soul for a cappuccino. We've been through this.
But then he published. I had that open letter to Varoufakis. He published that. And that was good.
The speakers who are like Ben, they like a free coffee, and they put them in with guys who have $10,000 to burn on a conference ticket, or perhaps more. Maybe 20. It's gone up. It goes, it goes up every 15 minutes as well, which is also the sign that you're getting a great deal and you're on the up and up. Conference ticket could just be $300. Instead, it just raised to $350. Oh, it just raised to $400. You should have jumped on it. And once again, all these people think they're so smart with their Bitcoin. You know who's smart? This guy, Trenton T. Shavers, Pirate at 40. I talk about this all the time. No one has any memory in the world anymore. July 23rd, 2013. That was a long time ago. Look it up in your books. He raised at least 700,000 Bitcoin. MicroStrategy, Strike Strategy, David Bailey strategy, 700,000 Bitcoins. It was a Ponzi scheme, and he went down. So that's Pirate at 40. That's why I talk about it all the time. 700,000. Victoria Jones, did we ask you already? I don't know. Nakamoto, invest, David Bailey. Ben's bought off for coffee. Have you had the coffee yet?
No, he's not bought me coffee. But then again, I didn't invent something like Nosta. So, my time will come.
And finally, unfortunately, one more political story because we have to, like Ben said, Trumpcoin, 58. You could fit them in a room. Crypto wallets have made millions on Trump's meme coin, while 764,000 presumably retail investors have lost money. The Trump token surged in popularity after being tied to the start of Trump's second term, and especially the recent contest, Have Dinner with the President. simply bribe him with enough Trump coin, and you, your business, your company, or perhaps even your terrorist group could have dinner with the president if you just pay enough money. It's obviously corrupt. It's obviously very questionable morally and so forth, but it is where he is. Ben, what do you think? 58 people made some sweet money on Trump coin.
I mean, and you know it's his inner circle, and his friends and family and whoever else he gave the inside info to. But it's just classic insider trading. It's just amazing that it's a president doing it. And it's funny listening to commenters from the US, and it's like, oh, you see, the problem is that we don't pay the presidents enough money, so that's why they have to scam people, because we need to pay presidents more money. And it's like, no, you shouldn't have presidents who scam people. Like,
well, Trump waived his right to a salary anyway, so that's not the reason.
yeah. Yeah, that guy's making bank on his presidency. But what the worry is, that, from what I can tell from listening to some of the commentators out there, is that it kind of raises the bar, and then normalizes some of this behavior. And it's like, it'd be interesting to see whoever comes next, like what they do. Will they release their meme coin, and will that just be a thing now, which leaders of the free world do, release meme coins and scam people?
It's hard to imagine anything topping dinner with the president. I'm sure we talked about this theoretically in the past, of things that you could offer with NFTs and how I think they're good for marketing and so on and so forth. But I never imagined this quickly that the president would have a meme coin, and if you bought enough of it, you could have dinner with it. And I mentioned that example earlier of the truckers buying in instead of lobbying. Finally, in a disaster story, I want to thank Bitcoin 2025 conference for sending me a free ticket. Not that they know who I am or know who this show is or any other of my work, but like Ben says, it's truly a horror show lineup. We've got David Bailey, Bitcoin Magazine, friend of the show, Ross Ulbrecht, the Dread Pirate Roberts, a complete horror show, Vice President J.D. Vance, the two Trump sons, Don Jr. and Eric, in the second row, Michael Saylor. I don't know if I know this guy. Maybe he's from the Fed. And of course, Jack Mahler's wearing his hoodie, the lone cypherpunk, and Cynthia, something, the Senator, Mullins, something like that. But we've got all these right-wing speakers. Hey, look, Adam back. There's a guy I know. So I guess that guy I didn't know was David Sachs, the White House AI and crypto czar, also from PayPal, the early PayPal mafia. It's really interesting. So you go to view all, you can see more speakers, or you can see the same speakers again. Then we get down to kind of the second level of speakers, the Winklevi, Safe Dean, Caitlin Long, all these kind of people, the Trumpers, Dan Moorhead, who Panera Capital, he hates me. And look at this, Trace Mayer. How about that? Trace has resurfaced.
Yay! Well done,
to
Trace.
see Trace at the convention. I don't know if I'm going to catch his speech. It seems like there's a lot of speeches here. I'm not great at catching them. Secondly, I would say if you're in Bitcoin, change your name to Aaron. They'll put you at the top of this list. This list is sorted alphabetically. A shout out to Aaron Von Weirdum, a Bitcoin Magazine, friend of the show, and some other people perhaps we recognize in here. But if your name didn't start with A, you're not on the list. And if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the list, I guess it's gone, but there used to be a button that said view more, and it took you to buy tickets. So the list ends at C. It's an incredibly right-wing looking convention. Even now, looking at it with a free ticket, I don't know that I want to go. I guess
so you only get like ABC. So you got to be called Aaron or Ben. Well, I'm not there, but then or a Chris. To be fair, this is the first one which I haven't been invited to. I don't know why. It's pretty right-wing. Yeah.
It seems like, unfortunately, Ben, they're not going to, are they going to have your open source stage and the thing where you teach all the people for free and all the fun stuff that we used to have?
That kind of got co-opted by the Americans. They turned the open source stage into like, I don't know. It grew organically in the conference where we got some tables and we put some tables together.
The whale pass.
We got some tables. We got some tables and put them together, and then we had like a free and open source area, and then it was kind of growing nice and organically, and then it seemed to just kind of get a little bit co-opted by some of the American kind of thought leaders who get paid a bunch of money for doing the open source area. I mean, sure, they'll have a open source area, I'm sure, but then Yeah, I don't know. He's always been good to me. So
I don't know, Ben. I'm watching this whale class war whale propaganda thing, whale pass. It just seems sick to me. I think we've gone very far away from
what's funny about the whale passes, and this is because we, if you're speaking there, you're doing something, you get your like
is that Russell Brand?
you get your the full access ticket, right? So actually, in the whale area of the Bitcoin conference, which people pay good money for, thousands for their whale pass tickets, then and the whale area is a bit shit, right? But then within the whale area, you have the deep dive area, which is like the whale area, where it's like the whales of the whales, which you have to pay. That's where you pay like 20 grand a ticket or whatever. And then when you go in there, there's like people like having vitamins intravenously and eating octopus and doing all the things which you imagine the rich folks to do. And but I just kind of always felt sorry for like the whale pass people because they invest all this money in a whale ticket and then they're just sort of stood around in this kind of crappy area and they're not like they haven't actually got access to the sanctum sanctorum, the inner circle. Yeah,
Isn't that
it's quite a
always the way
spectacle.
at the Hollywood parties? You get into VIP, but then there's a second VIP group as well. And I'm reminded of some kind of scene in the Bible where Jesus came back and he found the temple all full of money changers, and he threw them out on the street rather violently.
I think you should do that, Thomas. I think you should charge in there, chuck their tables over, chuck them out in the street.
This is a socialist coin. This is a libertarian coin. This is not for you capitalists. This is not for you institutions.
It's not for state, big state.
Run away from this.
Yeah.
It's a dirty coin. It's used for drugs and nonsense on the internet. And eventually you're going to realize that and you're all going to change your tune. And there'll just be this: conventions go up, conventions go down. Corporations get interested in Bitcoin. Corporations lose interest in Bitcoin just as soon as they make it illegal again.
There does need to be like a big corporate conference which exists in the world. I mean, I kind of feel the conferences are a bit scammy, full stop nowadays, because they make so much money. But there does need to be in the world a big corporate conference. And
I mean, you saw the photos. You could meet Russell Brand accused of rape. You could meet those Saudi gentlemen or whatever, the guys in the robes. Seem like they're very well off. It's very different than that guy in the hoodie in the picture. You see, it's like, I love this
but the guy that gets the Jack Malice is like, he's traditional
guy.
Yeah, but he's traditional finance, isn't he? I mean, like, I like Jack Mallers, but he is also from like this big family from Chicago, and he's pretty traditional. So he's like a token hoodie guy. He's like our hoodie guy. He's not your proper like crypto anarchist guy from Prague, like hacking shit. He's Jack Mallers. He's their version of a hoodie.
It's also great to see Ross Ulbricht in a suit. That's always what we dreamed of. Victoria Jones, what do you think? They say that we're too salty in the chat. They say they threw an Adam back for tech credibility. And Dusty Gray says Thomas should go in a toga.
I will say, can I also
goggles and throw them out.
Can I also say about one more thing about Adam Back, right? This is why I love Adam Back, is it doesn't matter how exclusive you make the exclusive area. Adam Back will just walk around the conference, stopping and chatting to absolutely everybody. He just wants to he's just one of us, and he wants to hang out with Bitcoiners, talk about Bitcoin stuff, and very approachable. If you see him at a conference, go up to him, say hello. And he spends, obviously has to go to the little whale area for like an hour or something, but then the rest of the time he's just walking around chatting to people. What a good dude. God bless Adam Back.
I don't even know what to do with this kind of an incredible lineup. I know that, last time Martine and I were at the Miami Bitcoin conference thrown by the same group, and we saw Tucker Carlson and Andrew Yang backstage. Maybe this time I could meet a Trump. Victoria Jones, should I bring around like an autograph book and a long pen? Should I try to collect these signatures? I mean, the who's who among conservative commentators, this guy J.D. Vance, raised by opium dealers or some kind of thing, hillbilly heroin. He'll be there. I mean, what we've always dreamed of, this crazy senator, Cynthia something, she'll be there. And these finance guys, the PayPal guy, remember I talk all the time about PayPal could have been Bitcoin? This is one of the guys who decided not to make PayPal Bitcoin. We should listen to him about our Bitcoin information. This is why we should get our Bitcoin truth.
Yeah, it's all gone a bit commercial, hasn't it? I think at some point someone spotted the potential for gathering people together, because of course in the old days when people had hardly heard of Bitcoin, you have the smaller conferences that have kind of been overtaken by the big guys, really. And it's a shame, because those little conferences, they were nice places to go to, and some of them still exist, but obviously they're not as well known. And of course, you get a completely different sort of clientele at these big conferences. I have to admit, I've not actually been to any of the big ones. It just doesn't appeal to me at all. Whereas every year I will go to Mallorca, because I think that's where the VIP group is. If you really want to meet a group of VIP Bitcoiners, you need to go to Mallorca Blockchain Days. That's what I say.
This is the real Bitcoin conferences right here. Andreas Antonopoulos in 2013 explaining Bitcoin to an empty room. That's what it was like. But not anymore. And we'll see, Ben, we'll see if I get into the whale area or the VIP whale area or the whale area beyond the whale area. But we're running out of time. Ben, do you have a prediction or a story of the week? Go ahead.
Just another story about Adam Back. The last time I saw Adam Back, right, probable billionaire. He had they had investment in Blockstream, 200 million. They got a 200 million investment in Blockstream not long ago, like 6 months ago or something. The last time I saw him was in an airport, and we were stood in the economy queue together, and he had his rucksack on, and I was like, Adam, I love you. Like because so many of these Bitcoin pricks, when they get their VC round for hundreds of millions or whatever they get, and then they're in the first class queue and they just go straight through. Not Adam Back. He's just in the economy queue. Just doesn't care. It's just Adam Back. That's enough. You don't need to get in the first class whale area queue in the airport.
That's probably the best argument for him being Satoshi, actually. The fact that
maybe it's just good OPSEC. Yeah. He's just like, don't ignore me. I'm just a regular dude. I'm not
exactly.
Bitcoin.
I don't need anything, even if I have 1 million Bitcoins.
yeah. God bless him. Story of the week, but I haven't really got anything. I mean, just cool Alan Bit stuff. Oh, we launched the auctions on Nostr.com. That's kind of cool. So if you got a Nostr identity, you can now sell that Nostr identity. You can put up for auction on Nostr.com. And we had a bunch of people buying up a bunch of Nostr identities, I think in preparation for that. Someone bought Mercedes at Nostr.com, like Mercedes are going to come along and buy their Nostr identity. But I thought it was kind of interesting. How they reacted to it, but yeah, that's something we rolled out. But yeah, apart from that, just nothing really. Been watching a bunch of 90s movies. I've spent the week watching a bunch of 90s movies, developing on the computer. I watched Falling Down because that was on Netflix, and then I just went through this thing of watching 90s movies, and a mediocre 90s movie is far superior to the movies we have now. And I was thinking it's probably because of the restrictions of the hardware. So you had the celluloid film, it was noisy. It means you had to do proper sound engineering, and you create this kind of dreamscape. Because our reality, like Walt Merck said, the editor who edited The Godfather, that we have a little editor in our brain who edits things for us. He increases the sounds of important noises when we need to hear them, and then when you flick your eyes from one, your eyeballs from one side to the other, you don't see a swish. It's because there's a little editor cutting things which you don't need out of your brain. And our version of reality is edited, and I think movies on celluloid, and when they had to actually do some proper sound engineering, lighting, and all that mise-en-scène shit, you lose that when you have the decent hardware and the digital cameras and everything else. And the modern movie industry is just terrible. Watch a mediocre 90s movie and it's far better than any shit you'll see now. Anyway, yeah, nothing to do with Bitcoin.
Yeah, Falling Down's a movie that's changed a lot over the years. It's really interesting. But yeah, Ben, there were a lot better movies in the past. I saw a great thing recently. It was a scene from a really old movie, and it I'm forgetting, but one of those big ones where they're pulling the Sphinx through the thing, and it's all the real extras. It's a crowd full of Roman centurions, and they're all dressed that way. And it said, we could still make movies like this if we wanted to. And we just don't want to.
I don't think it's going to happen. I think film is dead, because why would you spend 250 grand on reels of celluloid film to make you want to
using real extras, like a movie like Ron or Lawrence of Arabia? What makes it so real when you look at the scope of the film is that everyone there's an extra. At some point, somebody said, go. And all these guys went off on samurai uniforms in Japan riding around, it was real, and it took a lot of takes, it took a lot of money, and it's easier to do it on the computer now. So I don't think we'll ever see that again. Like you say, Ben, more than like 10 people gathered to be extras. Why wouldn't you just use the crowd software? Victoria Jones, you have a prediction, a story of the week, or comments on movies of the old days?
Yeah, well, I mean, it goes back to fiat currency, doesn't it, really? I mean, the thing is, we've devalued the currency so much, we couldn't afford to make movies like that anymore, you know? So, I often use that as an excuse to my daughter, you know, when they get worried about the fact that World War III is going to break out. And it's like the only reason they could have World War I and World War II is because they were able to devalue the currency at that point. You're not actually able to do that now. You know, and that by itself will restrict our ability to do that, you know, unless some madman releases the weapons that have already been made. But our ability to make more of them is very restricted now. So, yeah, that would be my comment.
It would be interesting if some dictator or something had the romantic idea to recreate some of these old films and to line up the actual troops and to get the actual costumes and to use the kind of funding that it takes to literally organize an army, which is what it was like when Kubrick and other people were working with these massive extras and sets. Finally, just a closing response stage. Just want to say congratulations to the new Pope, an American Pope, Leo the 14th. He's from Chicago. He's a White Sox fan. They have pictures that have surfaced on the internet that he went to the World Series. How cool is that? He's also kind of pissing off the right wing and the conservatives. Seems like he's very supportive of immigrants, migrants, poor people, all the things that unfortunately the mainstream conservatives don't seem to support. And finally, I have this little toy I got when I visited the Vatican. It's a Swiss Guard. So shout out to the Swiss Guard who guard the Pope. How fun is that? But thanks to everybody for joining us. Thanks for joining us in the chat. Give us a thumbs up down below and subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time, bye.